2023 Roadglide. This one does not have the saddlebag speaker, so we're going to add that. We're going to replace the two 5 1/4s to a 6 1/2. Also going to replace the stereo with the Soundstream V2. So I'm going to go ahead and take you to a little tutorial DIY type of thing to doing this. Shout out to Volunteer Audio for the kit. One of the best quality products out there, and their customer service is pretty much A+. So I'll go ahead and start taking the front fairing apart. Go ahead and take off the gas tank and take off the rest of the back area to prep everything for you. First things first, you just kind of want to go around and make sure there's no scratches or any damages like that. I think there's a fix to this one, I'm not sure, but I will look it up and then see if I can eliminate that gap. Mild scratches from just normal use, a couple of scratches there, nothing like too crazy. Also has one right here, little nick. Like little things like these are just kind of normal, but you still kind of want to check it out and kind of document whichever one has little damages here and there. That way you can kind of go back just to make sure you didn't damage anything. A couple of nick right there. Overall, it's nothing too crazy. Like I said, they're all kind of minor things. Before you do take apart the fairing, make sure you put a cover up top here to prevent stuff like that. Because if you drop something in here, even a screw, it can damage the paint, and you definitely don't want that. While we wait for UPS to deliver the parts that I need, we're going to go ahead and remove the front fairing. Basically take the whole bike apart, take the seat off, take the gas tank off, and then prepare this to get cut for the templates. Just make sure you put tape on it. You don't want to try to do all that without the paint, or you will scratch the paint. Don't want to risk that. But we are taking off the gas tank first. In order of business, this fitting right here is designed to release the line. So you just have to push up while you pull down on the actual line. I currently have that pretty much taken out. I'm just making sure that there's no gas that leaks to the motor. But I'll just leave it that for now until I take off the tank itself. But for now, we're gonna go ahead and remove the fairing, remove the seat, and then take care of the gas tank afterwards. To remove the seat, it only has one Phillips head that's holding it in place. Go ahead and slide the seat. Put it aside for now. Put all the parts and screws next to the pieces that you're taking off. That way you don't get confused on where they go. We're going to remove this. Basically unplug this gray or white connector. And then there's going to be a line right here that we also have to unplug, along with the vent line, which I believe is ran to the other side. And I'll show you what that looks like once it's taken apart. Just kind of wanted to start it up real quick just to make sure everything is good. It does have a traction control and ABS light on, but it feels like I've been seeing a lot of ABS issues even from the other ones that I did. So we're gonna go ahead and shut it down and continue working on it. So the next thing you gotta take off once you get the seat off is unplug that. Unplug the vent hose right here. And also there's gonna be one that's kind of tucked in as well. It'll be zip tied just like this, so go ahead and remove that. That way we can take the gas tank completely off. I went ahead and just kind of moved this a little bit, held by 13mm. Take that off. The top of the gas tank, 13mm. The only reason why you have to move this is so you can run the speaker leads for the rear all the way down here. Basically, you're just kind of following the harnesses right here, and it's gonna get zip tied along right here. So take 13mm off, 13mm. Just move this a little bit, and then we're gonna go ahead and start taking off the gas tank, which you do have to take these little covers off both sides, and more 13mm bolt right here. Once you have the gas tank off, like I said, two 13mm and two 13mm right here, and the whole thing just kind of pops off. Put it aside, kind of away from the bike, that way you don't accidentally trip on it or drop something on it. here's where we are so far, just kind of lining everything up. That way nothing gets accidentally damaged or scratched and things like that. So we're gonna go ahead and start moving on and removing the fairing. And I'll show you which one you need to do to get the whole fairing out. Cut the tape just like that. And then you're gonna have 3 of them, obviously. Now to pop these little covers off, you can just use a pick. You can use one from Harbor Freight or Flathead. So just pop it off. Do it on both sides if need be. That way you can release this whole assembly, because this is where you're going to be running pretty much all the wires for the speaker and then the amp. You don't really need to take the whole thing off. All you're going to be doing is obviously running the wires here, so there's not absolute necessary to run it, as it holds a couple of little knickknacks, but just put it aside, and then we'll go ahead and still remove the fairing. And once we get the amp and all the parts, the harnesses, we're going to run it real quick and then put it back how it was. Before you begin, these are only held by 4 Phillips screws. Now don't take them all completely off. You don't want this glass or this plastic front to just fall off and damage it. Also, do not lose these little washers right here. So just go ahead and loosen it, and then before you take the last ones off, just go ahead and hold it on top just to make sure it doesn't fall off. Once you get the glass front shield off, you're going to go ahead and push on the fairing itself down, and then you're going to use one of these panel remover, and then you're going to squeeze it in between about in this area, and then just pop it off. This one's only held by pretty much just clips, so don't be scared that it's not coming off right away. Just kind of work your way out. Like I said, the only thing that's holding it are these 2 clips. Once you have that off, just go ahead and plug the turn signal plugs right here, these 2. All you have to do is press on this little ear, and then it'll release. Now go ahead and remove the speaker grills. What you have to do is pretty much use the same plastic tool and just kind of slowly wedge it here, and it'll pop off. 2 clips right there, and it has a little tab right here that kind of inserts in, so go that way. Once you get the 2 popped off, that'll also reveal the screws that you need to take off. Now you have to remove these T30s, I believe. Let me double check real quick. T25s. You're gonna need a T25 Torx bit to remove these. Now that you have those 2 off, the only thing that's basically holding this whole front now is just these 2 T30s? T27s. I have to make sure on that one. But yeah, T27s. Make sure you take this one off first, and then when you take this off, make sure you hold on to the front fairing. That way it doesn't just fall off. Like I said, this is the only thing that's literally holding this whole front fairing assembly together in the front. Go ahead and take off the turn signal assembly as well, which I'm going to double check real quick what this one is, but you do need to take it off. And then take this 2 remainder screws off. Now that the 2 last screws are removed, along with the bottom ones, the only thing that's basically holding this now is just your hand. So like I said, be careful taking it off. Then we're gonna make it go towards the front, and then this whole front fairing is pretty much removed. So now we're gonna go ahead and remove the headlight, which is held right here, and then right there, and one hidden right here. These are T27s, so got the dandy T27s. Take all those 4. You need to use that same panel remover to pop these tabs off. It's only going to these 2 holes right here, so just kind of wedge it in between, push it back out. That way you can remove the headlight without anything attached to it. Once you get all those 4 removed, go ahead and plug the headlight harness, pops off, and put it aside. Go ahead and unplug both speaker connectors, both sides. Now you do have to remove the right side tweeter pod or speaker pod. do need to take all this off. The reason being for that is we need to run the charging cable down at this area. But the only thing that's really holding it is these two. And then GPS antenna we're not going to be using. We're going to remove that and use the one that come with the Soundstream, which is a lot better. But we are going to stick it in the same exact spot. So like I said, we need to access this area, pop this off, cut a couple of zip ties. For the stock USB, go ahead and pull it out. Show you what I did right here. You're going to remove that whole trim off, or the rubber gasket. Now do not try to cut this. If you accidentally cut this and then nick some of the sensitive wires inside, then your factory USB would not work. But all I really did was kind of spin it around, tuck it in, so out of sight, out of mind. Insert the USB back. That pretty much took care of that. Go ahead and plug your USB. Might need my 2 hands for these. I find it hard to kind of release these even if you press on it. So the tab right here in the top, and if I recall, the AM/FM would be on the bottom. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the phone down, use a little pick, and then try to pry them off. I just used a pick to pop it off. Now to pop the power for the radio, there's a little tab right here that you push down and it'll release the lock. And then go forward. That takes care of the radio. Alright, I take that back. I've actually been using a 3/16 of an inch Allen head. I know I mentioned the earlier T27. I accidentally put it in the T27 spot, which a friend of mine used this and didn't put everything back. So 3/16 right there and T27. So like I said, I've been mentioning T27, but because these are the only two that I'm pretty much using, along with a Phillips and then a 13 mil. So remove the 3/16 Allen heads. That's the only thing that's holding the radio. So it's loose now. So I'm gonna go ahead and kind of make it go towards up, as the radio has a lip right here. So the radio is pretty much out. Here's the current state of the bike. So you can see everything is taken apart. The radio, pretty much the side panels, the seat, the saddlebags. Everything is pretty much ready for the parts. Here are all the stuff right here. It is pretty right outside here in Kansas today. So I went ahead and just kind of placed everything in order. That way I know how they all go back in. Make sure they don't touch and scratch the paint. The other parts are right here in the corner, kind of out of sight, out of mind. So that's pretty much the only thing we can do at this point. We do need to take off the speakers now. That way we don't have to do it later. But for now, we'll wait on UPS. I just kind of went ahead and loosened the factory speakers. Didn't fully take it off. That way I know the orientation when I put everything back. I might go ahead and add maybe a couple of Dynamat sheets just to kind of help it not flex too much. Probably around this side or another side. I don't think Volunteer Audio really did that before, but I think I've seen one video where they actually put sound skin. So I might just put a couple of little sheets and pieces just to kind of help it not flex too much whenever it's working. So once it arrives, like I said, I'm gonna do that skin, then install the speaker, and then start running the wires for the amp. Now remove this cover right here. Unplug this, put it aside, and unplug the black connector. Let me see where the plug is on this one. Might be on the bottom. Yep, bottom right here. Put that aside for now. 2 13 mils. And we're gonna see, I believe there's a little piece right there that's getting caught. So I'm gonna go ahead and use 2 of my hands for this one and just kind of slowly work my way out. Go ahead and pop your ECM off. It's only held by these little ears right here. That would release the lock, and then should be able to just pop off this little cover right here. It is held in here, so yeah, I definitely need my hand for this one. As you can see right here, it needs to go forward while you're moving the engine harness to the front. That way it'll release that little ear. You do need to release the two connectors, the gray one and the black one. Already got that released. Just got to push it forward. That way it'll release the locking tab right here. And then, like I said, that little silver piece right here kind of goes to this hole. So just kind of move it forward and then lift it up. Here's the UPS delivery. It just got delivered just now. Nothing's opened yet. So we're just gonna inspect it. As I noticed, there's a big dent right here. So as you can see, this is from Volunteer Audio. So let's go ahead and unbox it and see if there's anything damaged. Alright, everything looks pretty good, so I'm still gonna take everything out just to kind of inspect the packages and then basically start installing. Got everything taken out of the box. Here's what you should get. The upper, the rear saddlebag kit, the cutout kit, the speaker harness. Here's all the wiring and things like that. The upper fairing grills, speakers, 6x9, and then the radio. We're gonna go ahead and pop in the amp first, since that goes below, as it needs to catch in the bracket. I'll show you why I'm gonna do that first and then move on to the radio after. One box will come with all the amp and pretty much the amp kit. Everything is pretty much tees off, so that's perfectly done. Shout out to Volunteer Audio for that. And the grills for the upper fairing, it'll be brand spanking new Hertz. That definitely looks pretty good. And then we got the cut kit, which I'm not gonna bother right now. We'll do that kind of a little bit to the last, but for now we're gonna go ahead and pop in the amp and then do the radio, put the two front speakers, run the amp, power wire and ground, and then we'll do this one last. For this step, you're gonna be running the rear speaker harness along with the power and amp. Power and ground is going to be right here, so just kind of put that aside for now. You're not going to need it till later. For this one, you don't have to put any zip tie on it. Once you put the cover on, it's going to hold everything in place. I did add a zip tie right here just to kind of keep everything from like shifting and things like that. So there's going to be a small cover right here that pops off. That's where you're going to run all your wires at, and I'll show you where it's coming out from. As you can see, they're right here, along with the factory harness, kind of going the same route. So here's another view of it, kind of on the side, or you can kind of run it on top, whichever one you prefer, same way. With your amp, it's going to come with two pre-installed nut and bolt. You're going to go ahead and take that off. The only issue that I'm running into right now is pretty much the ears. I'm going to have to bend it a little bit, that way it'll go in. It's currently hitting just a tad on the very edge, so this is a pretty tight fit install, which I prefer that way, so I don't mind bending here, bending that, just to get it to fit a lot tighter. Make sure you have a cover on the front fender, that way any of your wires would not hit or scratch it. So now this part is a tight fit. I had to kind of use a flathead to try to nudge it in that way, kind of wedge it. It is a pretty tight fit, so that's honestly not going to go anywhere. Now go ahead and put the two 8mm bolts that they provided to kind of lock everything in. Now that we got the amp pretty much tightened up, just kind of leave the wires hanging right here so we can make all the connections afterwards. Go ahead and open the radio. Here's all the little hardware. Now by protocol, they have to give you a mic, which in this case we're not going to do since you won't be able to hear them anyway. But the beauty about it is also comes with the Maestro RR. So this would pretty much provide you with everything from the thumb control, everything programmed to the bike, and Volunteer Audio did do all that, so you don't have to worry about anything. I do have the programmer, but since this case they already did all that for me, or just for any customer, you don't have to do anything. So just go ahead and plug it in, tuck it in, and then we'll go ahead and install the radio first. Beautiful radio from Soundstream. So I'm gonna go ahead and take it off and show you what it looks like. Here is the new radio. We're not gonna take off that protective film for now. So what we're gonna have to do here is pretty much plug everything in. We're gonna install the GPS antenna that comes with it and the blue wire, the standard USB antenna. We're gonna go ahead and run the charging cable and then plug the factory plug in. I went ahead and put back the harness cover. So just kind of make sure when you pop it in, it doesn't like pinch any wires or anything like that. I did put back the zip ties that obviously I took off earlier, so I'm gonna have to, I did replace it with new one just to kind of prevent it from popping off. Now we have the radio permanently mounted there. So we're gonna go ahead and put back the bolts that came off of it. Put the little metal bracket on top. I'm gonna take it off from the old radio, which is this piece right here. And then we're gonna mount it on the new one. In the radio bag, it's gonna come with these little plastic pieces. That's gonna go in between. That way it fills in the void of the opening. Just kind of helps it secure tighter. To my understanding, it's from the aluminum to steel. You don't want that mixing or something like that, but this does come with it, so it's gonna have to go in between. As you can see, it fills in the void. And then go ahead and slowly tighten everything up. Here's the progress so far. Now when you tighten these, make sure you go crisscross, slowly tightening them kind of evenly. That's just kind of how I do mine, but she looks pretty good. So we're gonna go ahead and start plugging in whatever we need to plug in. We do need to run the USB. We're not gonna do the cameras and things like that. He's not gonna run the camera. We're also not gonna do the XM or Sirius satellite, so we're gonna go ahead and zip tie that out of the way for now. The only thing we're gonna run from here, from this bundle, is this USB. The new USB cable comes with the new grommet, so we're gonna have to squeeze that in. Go ahead and just kind of release these clip right here that goes here. That way we can maneuver this and pretty much move everything out of the way. Now, per instructions from some of the videos that I've seen from Volunteer, they don't recommend you cutting this. Like I said, you can accidentally cut it. They don't recommend you cutting it. So, but the new grommet is pretty much in place. Just kind of zip tied this together. I already got the new GPS antenna just temporarily mounted there. The stock USB is pretty much plugged in. Stock antenna plugged in. So we're gonna go ahead and zip tie this along with the harnesses once we are ready to put everything back together. So it might just hold kind of like that and zip tie it like that. But for now, we're gonna go ahead and plug stuff in and pretty much just test it, make sure it turns on. So this one took me a while. I did have all this harness kind of mounted right here, and then the headlight wouldn't go back in. So I had to maneuver it kind of up here a little bit, zip tie it along with everything else, and somehow the headlight looks like it's fitting just fine. So we're gonna leave it at that. Talk about a tight fit. It took me a while to get these screws to bolt back up. Like I said, I did mount all the wires on this corner, some of the excess on top. Still need to kind of zip tie this somewhere around here. The wires are just so long that it took quite a bit of room everywhere. So now I have to double check everything, make sure nothing is getting pinched, nothing's getting too tight. But the headlight did go back in, so that's a good thing. Got everything screwed back down. Got the factory parts, went back in. Still need to tighten these two bottom ones. And then we're gonna test fit the fairing. I'm gonna shut down for the night. Wasted quite a bit of zip ties, redoing it over and over. But just to recap, the Maestro iData link is mounted pretty much under right here. So you can see all the wires are still plugged in. Double check, make sure they're still tight. The speaker wire for the left fairing, for the right fairing. And then here's all the harness. Here's for the left. Zip tied everything back together. We're gonna shut down for the night and then keep on moving tomorrow. So I did attempt to try to install the right side speaker enclosure, and it was hitting the Maestro when it was mounted here. So what I did is just kind of tuck it in and made it go sideways a little bit. So whenever that thing goes back in, it kind of just like rests against it and it's not going to go anywhere. So I'm going to do a quick and make sure you guys plug everything in the proper way. This one goes in here. This is the Maestro. Goes plug in to the actual radio itself. Once you get that radio plugged in, the amp, you're going to plug it in between. And this is the factory harness. That way you have the Maestro first, and then the amp, and then the factory plug. Here's the finished install. Got the Maestro T-harness for the radio, and then the amp is in between the factory and the new T-harness Maestro radio. So I just kind of zip tied everything kind of securely. I still need to plug the USB back. We still need to install the speakers back for the new ones, and then we need to cut the saddlebags for the rear speaker. Let's go ahead and swap the new speakers. The only thing you're gonna need for this one is a needle nose, because as soon as you remove the terminals, you're gonna need to kind of crimp them a little bit to make them tighter again. The clear one is the positive, the black one is the negative. Just wanted to show the quality difference between the stock one and the aftermarkets. I'm not even sure how this thing is working. I don't even think there's a magnet in there, but here's the new Neo setup. Utilizes a smaller magnet, but it is a pretty strong magnet, so you're not going to see like a gigantic magnet this way, but this is a pretty nice speaker. So just kind of install it the same way you took the old one off. Make sure you have the Hertz facing that way. I'm sure you can see it a little bit on the grill. You want to see the word Hertz. So like I said, go ahead and crimp the terminals a little bit. That way to kind of tighten them up a little bit, and then put the new one in. Here's the new Hertz speaker one done. This is going to be for the passenger side, or I guess the brake side. Make sure you don't over tighten these screws, as you don't want to strip the plastic itself. This already have a gasket on it, so you don't really have to worry about it sealing and things like that. So just kind of slowly tighten it all around. Make sure everything is tightening evenly, and then move on to the next one. Forgot to mention that before you even screw everything down, make sure you take out the silica packets that's kind of inside the cone or in the back of the speaker. The last thing you need is to put everything back and then you forget to take this off. You're gonna hear a lot of rattle. There's gonna be a lot of frustrating times. Went ahead and tucked in the power and ground. So you can see it's zip tied along here. That way it's not bouncing around inside there, completely suspended. So got everything tightened up. We're gonna go ahead and put the cover back on and start putting the ECM back. Now that you got everything wired up, go ahead and run the two pigtails that'll go to the saddlebag. One would say brake side and one would say belt. Obviously the belt right here, brake side on the other. So run the belt side kind of like around, I'd say about right here. Zip tied to that harness, because you want it to just be long enough for it to plug in. You're going to be running it from under. I'm going to show you what that looks like. Here's one of them. I just zip tied it. Like I said, you don't have to make it too long. You just want to follow this harness right here. It'll come out from there. Make sure you zip tie it as well. The other side, you'd want to use this factory mount bracket right here to hold the zip tie, and then zip tie along right here. And then these two harnesses should look just like that. So for the extra wires that you're gonna have from the speaker, you're just gonna put it in this little cavity right here. Just kind of zip tie everything, that way it's not flapping around in there. And once you get everything tucked in, it's gonna take a little bit. There you go. Just like that. So just like before, you want everything to go back in like nothing was ever added to it. It's always the goal. Go ahead and make sure you plug this black plug right here. This one's going to be with the gas tank, and then this one's the vent tube. So leave that alone for now. Then we'll move on to the next stuff. After you put this on, go ahead and put the fuse box back in. Make sure nothing's getting tangled behind it. Then we're going to go ahead and kind of just power it up. Test fit the rear speakers, and then see if this thing has sound. Alright, for this particular part, you will screw in the template. Make sure it's kind of flush to this lip right here, not all the way right here. Just kind of like where that edge is. Make sure there's no gaps around it, and also this contour line right here. You want to match it to the stock one, which I kind of made a little line right there just to kind of have a reference. I did the same thing on the exact side. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a couple of pre-drilled holes where we're going to run the blade and then start cutting the opening. I made a couple of pilot holes right here with a 3/8 drill bit. That's where you're going to start off the cutting portion. So you're going to cut this way, that way, this way, and then obviously we'll do this one last because we have to hold it in place. That way it doesn't pop off or try to move around when you're trying to cut it. Now you can use whatever tool you desire to cut it. I would suggest one of these Sawzalls just because you can kind of guide it and hold it. Get a smaller bit from Milwaukee. Eye protection. And like I said, we're going to start cutting right here. This one line. Got the template one down. Got everything cut. If you do this properly, you don't really need to sand anything else. Everything should just kind of drop in with no gaps. Now there are gaskets in here. So you can see it'll seal it properly once you sandwich the saddlebag part in between the grill and then the speaker adapter. Gasket is pretty much sealed all the way around, so that's when you know you did it right. When you're cutting this top corner right here, the release cable is going to be under it. As you can see, you're going to get pretty close to this latching cable. So don't try to go too far out when you get to the edge. Don't even try to do the whole curve cut. Just as soon as you hit that corner, stop. Or you will kind of cut through that. If done right, it should just pop off. There's your hole. Now that you got the grills cut out, or the grill opening cut out, make sure you kind of double check everything. Make sure all the seals are lining up. This one is pretty good. Once the adapter is pretty much sandwiched in there, it's going to pull it down even more and make it a lot tighter. So as you can see, the mess that is going to make cutting this thing, but that's why you have to have a vision protection. That way you don't end up accidentally getting into your eye. You will end up going to the hospital if this hot plastic get into your eye. Make sure you vacuum up all the mess that you made inside. There's going to be a lot of melted plastic right here, but easy vacuum, done. Here's the progress so far. The customer is going to pick up the grills and paint match them to the same color red, so it kind of blends in. But for now, we're going to go ahead and drill the holes for the grommet to go through. So I'm going to go ahead and take this thing back off and then plan out where to mount that. So I got the hole drilled. So now the fun part of trying to install this grommet, which is the diameter is a lot smaller, so it's going to be a lot tighter. But you want it to be tighter as you don't want water to go in there, and you also want to point this slit right here on the bottom. That way there's no water going to be sitting. If it's sitting up like that, you want the water to kind of just flow out. Now we're going to have to drill a hole somewhere around right here. If you have a step bit, it'll be 5/8. If you have a spade bit, it'll be a 16 millimeter. So whichever one you have, you can use either one. Just don't go too crazy big. Try to go on the tight side, because that grommet is going to be a tight fit, and you're going to be using a flathead to kind of insert it slowly, but prevent damaging the paint. So we're going to go ahead and drill somewhere around here and show you what that looks like. Here's the recap so far. Got the radio, speakers, mounted. We're gonna go ahead and put the gas tank back on. The customer decided to paint the grill to match the vehicle or the color of the actual saddle, so it's gonna blend in instead of having it black. Personal choice by the customer, so it is what it is. So we are gonna be waiting a day or two till that thing gets situated, but for now we're gonna go ahead and put the gas tank, put the fuel line back, plug the sensor in, and then see if it'll fire up, and then let the battery charge back up. Gotten the gas tank put back in its spot. Make sure you plug this hose for the vent, and then also the long vent to the other side. Make sure it's zip tied, not touching anything hot. Make sure this is plugged in. Got the bolt, and don't forget to insert the little cover. It's just like a little beauty cover, just to kind of hide the bolt itself. Let me see if I can do it with one hand real quick. There you go. So do the other side, and then we'll stop for now. Gonna go ahead and kind of make sure that these are pretty much in phase and not out of phase. You need one of these polarity testers. You just want to make sure that they are pulsing at the same time, same pattern. We're gonna do the ones for the back, but we're waiting on the grill currently. So we're gonna do the fronts for now and just kind of test it out. What I'm currently doing now is pretty much just applying the seal per instruction. As you can see, you're gonna get everything you need to pretty much follow along on how to cut this, prep it, and then get it all set up. It's gonna be the two gaskets. So one side is gonna be sticky, and then one's not gonna be. So pretty much just lay it on top and start pretty much applying it. And then we're gonna test fit just to make sure these speakers are going and working from the amp. And then we're gonna go ahead and mount the adapters. So just make sure you kind of line up the holes. That's your starting point on one side, and just gently press it on. Make sure it's not sticking on the rubber surround of the speaker. So just kind of work your way out. So you don't have to rush on this part. Don't really need to do all that fancy speeding up stuff, but just kind of make sure everything lines up. Make sure it's sitting flat, and make sure it's not sticking, like I said, on the rubber surround. Same goes for the other side. Make sure it can freely move, and if it looks like it's touching, just push it far out. So then we can go ahead and plug it in just to make sure everything works. Had to take a little trip to Ace Hardware. I needed the machine screws, which the kit did not come with. I've looked a couple of times to make sure that it's there, but it isn't. So I ended up having to go here to get some machine screws, which I believe it's a M4 by 0.7, and it has to be 12 millimeters long. And it's specific machine screws that go here that screws onto the adapter. So I'm also going to need two more of these. This is the template screws. It's also the same as what the speaker gets held by to the adapter, and obviously there's only 6 here, and I need total of 8. So I'm gonna get those 2, and hopefully Ace Hardware has it. But Volunteer Audio did send me a new one. It's not really their fault, so I can't really blame them. It's one of those things that sometimes it happens from packaging from the manufacturer. So, but it's not a big deal. It's getting taken care of regardless. The bike is still at the house, so we're gonna go ahead and take it care of. Hopefully they do have it. So I'm mounting the adapter and the grill. What I found the easiest is to tighten the forward 2 screws first, which are these 2, and then do the outer one, and then do the last one all the way in. Now put these on 2 first, don't tighten it, just kind of loosely halfway screw it in, and then line this up. What I found helpful is I have a pick that I actually use it to center the threads. So once I get this one in, I'll do the same thing on this one while pushing on the grill and try to line it up. And then the way I timed it is obviously once you hear it, that's pretty much tight. So don't go too crazy on these things. They don't need to be all the way tight. The speaker itself is going to weigh it down, so it's going to put more tension. But other than that, this is pretty much screwed down. Then we're going to try to test fit these speakers. I got this one done up. As you can see, everything is pretty much flat how it should be. All the seals sit flat, especially this one as well. So there is no gaps on it, which is a good thing. However, on the other side, I did find a slight issue where the corner is not sitting flat. So what I'm gonna have to do is cut it off. That little corner needs to be trimmed a little bit more, but I'd rather have this than it be too big. So I don't mind sanding a little bit, which is no big deal. So I'm gonna go ahead and take everything back off and then sand that down. I've gotten the thing fixed up. Got the gap taken care of. Kind of sucks I had to take it back off, but that's the necessary thing sometime with these. Sometimes you gotta trim to make it fit just the way they are. Both saddlebag speakers are pretty much installed, plugged in. I went ahead and moved on to the front fairing. As usual, everything went smooth. There's no hesitation, there's no pushbacks from any of the pieces, so that's always the best thing. We still need to put the little cover on. I'm trying to see if this thing is going to be an interference somehow, but there's already a magnet there, so there's no need to move it. Let's go ahead and put the top cover and then the windshield, and then this one is pretty much almost done. We still need to make sure this is again in phase along with the back ones, and then put the cover back on. She is finally done. I'm gonna go ahead and wipe it down just to get all my fingerprints off of the beautiful paint. So quite a bit of, obviously, like I said, my fingerprints. So I'm gonna leave this off for now. That's gonna be the one last, but these paint matched grills look beautiful. So I'm gonna go ahead and call the customer, just kind of test everything out and do a last minute checking of the in phase of the speakers just to make sure they are the right polarity. But then again, like I said, I'm gonna call the customer and let him know everything is done. Now that I look at it more, there's so many fingerprints from me handling it, so can't let the customer get it like that since he dropped it off nice and clean. So gotta kind of treat it the same way. Simple, detail wipe. Won't do no harm. Just to kind of get all that fingerprint, especially these saddlebags. These got the worst, so just a quick wipe down, nothing too crazy. So other than that, she is pretty much done. Can't forget the new Hertz grill. Definitely compliments. Looks way nicer than the stock one. You can see the speaker from directly behind it, so adds a little good taste to it. So I'm sure the customer would love that. I'm gonna go ahead and keep the music playing for a little bit just to make sure everything is good. Start the bike, make sure all the turn signals, all the lighting works. Make sure there's no errors. Other than that, hopefully you guys a little learned something. Like I said, shout out to Volunteer Audio for such a great kit, and they do have a great customer service as well. When I had questions, they reply right away. So that's definitely kind of the kind of company that you want to buy from. So shout out to them, kudos to them, A+.
If I can.
And they put that in there real good.
Yeah. Boy.